so much. So that brings me to Dave Nave, and he has a really interesting thing to share with us. And Dave, I'm going to see if it works for you to just try sharing your screen.
So what I want to talk about in this situation is part of the background in the creation, or it's a precursor actually to the book, Strategy Made Visible, Tangible, and Indispensable. It deals with some underlying principles and spurred the creation of the book. But I want to talk about policy alignment, and this comes under the heading of working on your company, not in it. It seems to be a common theme that I like to work on. And first we're going to talk about modern management has some modern management practices has some blind spots. And most of it is because of how modern management was created. It's just a group of best practices and specialties thrown it together in a pot and stirred. And I like this, sometimes heated over a fire. But all we can do in this case is actually shine a light on some of these blind spots. Let's bring them out into the open and take a look at them, see what they have to say. Frequently seen in many organizations is some incongruency between the goals and rewards. Here's a list of 4 that I find real common, and each one is a long discussion in itself. And this has more to do with the behavior than it does the theories, but it is the behavior. But in this case, I'd like to work on the first one. The promote teamwork. Organizations love to promote teamworks. However, they reward individuals. And one example of that is Incompatible Hopes. The corporation published these 2 goals and objectives. Provide a systematic reward, provide a system of rewards that recognize superior performance, et cetera, and they will come out later and say, okay, we want to create and maintain a stimulating and enjoyable work environment. Now, what is this telling the organization? Right? The first one is actually in conflict with a second one. The first one has changed the focus of activities away from the customer and away from the company towards the individual. The employee's job is now to get recognized. All right, and what happens is the first one promotes conflict and competency. It's a sure road to demoralization of the group, and it takes satisfaction out of the work. This is really common. I don't know if any of you have been exposed to this type of environment, but I certainly have. We're going to move on to Mr. Scott Adams. He has a great way of providing Dilbert cartoons that also show this type of an example. And I love this. I have been victim of this many times. Our policy is to employ only the best technical professionals. Isn't it also our policy to base salaries on the individual averages? The question becomes, you can look at that and say, that doesn't seem right. And so the question that I had when I see this type of stuff is, how is this created? And the best answer I've been able to find, and my observation says what happens is 2 different groups are making policy without any relationship with each other, or without the aim of the organization. They don't quite understand how all this stuff interacts. But only when these 2 incompatible hopes come focus in one area does the inconsistency be exposed. And in this case, the poor pointy-haired boss articulates the interaction, and I love the way Wally just brings that home, puts a nail right on it. All right, so the aim of the organization should be that so everybody will gain. right? And if we're going to expose this type of inconsistency, or in this case, the incompatible hopes, there's only two ways that I've been able to see to do this. One of them is to just bring it, if you're working from inside the company, is just to make people aware of it. And they usually don't like that, by the way. It shows that there's something wrong. But to expose these inconsistencies. Another is if you're actually leading an organization, if you're a executive, sometimes there's an effort. Sometimes they create an effort to go in and actually try to find these and to expose them and get rid of them. So you search them out and correct them. And that's essentially the exposure and visibility is part of the reason I created the book on strategy made visible, tangible, and indispensable. That's all I have.
And Dave, that's really very interesting, not only to know the backstory for your book, but certainly to look at these incompatibilities that we may have been doing for years and not realize that that's what we had done. And your idea to go and look at them and see where things are mismatched can be a really hopeful and efficient way for us to reinvent our business, because we're kind of throwing out those things that don't match up with our vision and what we're trying to say to the people we work with or that we have as customers or other kinds of stakeholders. So that's a wonderful, wonderful idea for us to think about, because it's something that we don't necessarily take time to do because we're too busy doing the work. And this is a good time to do that. So thank you, Dave, so much. You want to not share your screen anymore? And maybe that'll bring it back to me. What you're seeing on the screen right now is a copy of the front cover of his book. And so I always appreciate the information you gave us. The working on it and not in it is a Michael Gerber perspective, who wrote the E-Myth and the E-Myth Manager. And I have used it. He's not the only one. Guy Kawasaki and even Dana and I came up with that concept at the same time. And so it's not just a Gerber thing, but some of you might recognize it because Gerber did a good job of marketing it. It's a good thought to work on it and not in it.